In the sprawling mansion of Chief Darlington, a web of betrayal has been spun. While Darlington, a successful millionaire, was away on business, his wife, Amara, sought solace in the arms of Musa, the loyal and trusted gatekeeper of the estate. The unexpected consequences of that moment of weakness were now unavoidable. Amara found herself pregnant, not with Darlington's child, but with Musa's. At the same time, Darlington had been secretly involved with the maid, Ngozi, and the affair had led to her own pregnancy. As the secrets began to surface, the mansion that had once represented wealth and power was now the stage for a dramatic unraveling of lives. Amara's guilt weighed heavily on her, and Ngozi's quiet heartbreak mirrored her own. Musa, meanwhile, found himself thrust into a dangerous situation, and he had no idea just how much his own life would soon be turned upside down. The days that followed were filled with hushed whispers and unspoken tension. Darlington kept to himself, retreating into his study, drowning in his thoughts. He had always prided himself on being a man who could control everything: his business, his wealth, his family. But now, everything was spiraling beyond his grasp. Amara's pregnancy had begun to show, and though she tried to maintain appearances, it was clear that she was carrying someone else's child. Meanwhile, Ngozi's pregnancy was not hidden as easily. The signs were there, and every day, the weight of their secret grew heavier. Amara, who once held her head high as the proud wife of a successful businessman, now found herself living in a prison of her own making. Her guilt was suffocating. Every time she looked into Darlington's eyes, she saw the man she had betrayed. And then, there was Musa. Every time she crossed paths with him, she felt the shame of what they had done together. But Musa, the quiet and stoic gatekeeper, remained a mystery in all of this. He was a man of few words, but his presence carried a weight. He wasn't just any man in her life. He was the one she had slept with, the one who had fathered her child. Musa had always been a man of loyalty. He had worked for Darlington for years and had seen everything. He had seen the grand parties, the luxurious cars, and the beautiful woman who was Amara. But he never expected to be caught up in such a scandal. The truth of what had transpired between them was eating him alive. He had never imagined that a single night of weakness would change the course of his life forever. Now, he was faced with the painful reality of his own choices. But there was more at play here than just his own personal guilt. It wasn't long before the first bombshell dropped. A mysterious letter arrived one afternoon, addressed to Chief Darlington. The letter's contents were simple, yet its impact was profound. The child your wife carries is not yours. Ask Musa. Darlington read the letter multiple times. He couldn't believe it. He had always trusted Musa. The gatekeeper was a man of integrity, always at his service. But now, everything felt like a lie. The letter made it clear. Someone knew what had happened between Amara and Musa. As the days passed, Darlington's mood darkened. He was increasingly paranoid, second-guessing every interaction, every glance. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him, waiting for the right moment to expose the truth. His trust in everyone around him was crumbling, and he felt completely isolated in his own home. Finally, unable to take the silence anymore, Darlington confronted his wife, Amara. It was late evening when Darlington called Amara into the study. The mansion was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that precedes a storm. Amara walked in slowly, her steps hesitant. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. Darlington stood by the window, his back turned to her. "Amara," he began, his voice cold and steady. "We need to talk." It's time for the truth to come out. Amara froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what was coming. The truth, the unbearable truth, was finally catching up to her. She tried to speak, but her voice faltered. Darlington, He turned to face her, his eyes filled with pain and anger. You're carrying another man's child. Amara, Musa's child. Amara's face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but found no words. Her eyes welled up with tears as the full weight of her actions crashed down on her. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let this happen? Darlington demanded, his voice rising. Amara collapsed into a chair, her hands trembling. I'm so sorry, Darlington. It was a mistake. Just one mistake. I never thought it would go this far. But you weren't there for me. I was lonely. And Musa, he was there when I needed someone. I never meant to hurt you. Darlington's face twisted in disbelief. You were lonely? Lonely? That's your excuse? You betrayed me with my gatekeeper, Amara. As he spoke, he realized that his rage wasn't just about betrayal, it was about his own insecurities. How could his beautiful wife, the woman he adored, fall for a man beneath their social standing? How could she degrade herself with someone who was nothing more than a servant? Amara's voice trembled as she whispered, I never wanted it to happen this way. But it did, Darlington. And now I have to live with the consequences. While Darlington and Amara were embroiled in their own battle, Musa was struggling with his own demons. The letter had reached him too, but it didn't have the same effect on him as it did on the others. He was already filled with guilt. But now, the realization that someone else knew the truth was a crushing blow. Musa had never wanted this. He had always kept his head down, working hard and staying out of trouble. He knew his place in the world. He had been raised to understand his role as a servant and to know that relationships with women of his employer's stature were never to be taken lightly. Yet, one night, in a moment of weakness, he had found himself in Amara's arms. And now, that moment had spiraled into something much bigger than either of them could have imagined. Despite the weight of the situation, Musa still felt an underlying sense of responsibility. He had fathered a child, and that child deserved to be acknowledged. He had never planned for this, but now he had to figure out how to deal with the fallout. He was no longer just the gatekeeper, he was a man with a child on the way. A child whose very existence could shatter the lives of those who lived in that mansion. Who's to blame for this betrayal? Should Musa take responsibility for his actions or leave everything behind? Like if you think the tension is building to a breaking point. And subscribe for more viral African stories with unexpected twists. One fateful afternoon, Darlington summoned Musa to his study. The atmosphere was thick with hostility, and Darlington could hardly contain his anger. You knew, didn't you? He asked, his voice venomous. You knew what was going on with my wife. Musa stood there, his expression calm, almost unreadable. Yes, Chief, he replied, his voice low. I knew, but I never wanted it to go this far. Darlington's fist slammed against the desk. Do you think this is some sort of joke, Musa? You've ruined everything. You've destroyed my family. And now, my reputation is in shambles. Musa's eyes flickered with a mixture of regret and defiance. I'm not proud of what happened, Chief, but I will not run from my responsibility. Amara and we made a mistake, but I'm not the only one at fault here. Darlington's gaze darkened. He was silent for a long moment, considering his next words carefully. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady but filled with cold fury. I don't know how this will end, Musa, But mark my words, someone will pay for what you've done. In the days that followed, the tension reached unbearable levels. Chief Darlington, Amara, and Musa were caught in a web of lies and betrayal that was slowly suffocating them all. As secrets unraveled, their world seemed to crumble at every turn. But the biggest secret of all was still hidden, and it would soon come to light, throwing everything into chaos. This scandal is only getting worse. How do you think the story will end? Will Darlington forgive Amara and Musa, or will it all fall apart? Like if you want to see more explosive twists. Share if you're hooked on this viral African story. Don't forget to subscribe for more unexpected drama.